My mother-in-law kicked me out, not knowing I was the one paying the $4,800 rent. When people ask how I ended up being kicked out of my own house, I just smile and say, it's a long story, but truth is, it's a wound that still burns. My name is Amara, and for 3 years, I lived in what everyone believed was the dream life. A good husband, a fancy duplex in Lekki, 2 cars parked in the driveway, and in-laws who pretended to love me. But behind those polished smiles were cracks wide enough to swallow a person whole. When I married Toby, I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. He was charming, witty, and ambitious, the kind of man every woman in Lagos dreamed of. What people didn't know was that behind his confidence was a deep insecurity, the kind that needed validation from everyone, especially his mother, Mama Toby, a woman whose words could slice through steel. She ran her home, and her son, with an iron fist. The day I met her, she hugged me too tightly and whispered, "Welcome, my dear. I hope you understand that my son comes first in this family." At the time, I laughed it off. I thought she was joking. But I learned soon enough. Mama Toby never joked. After our wedding, Toby lost his job. He said it was temporary, just a bad market season. But temporary turned into months, and months turned into a year. Meanwhile, our bills didn't wait. The rent for our duplex, $48,000 a year, about $4,800, was due. Toby was too proud to tell his mother that he couldn't afford it, so I quietly stepped in. I had been working remotely for a tech company in Nairobi. My salary wasn't huge, but it was stable. I told the landlord to put the rent in my name, but keep Toby as the point of contact. He agreed, as long as the money came in, and for 2 years I paid every kobo, secretly. Toby never asked how the rent was always handled. He'd just smile and say, "My Father in heaven always provides." He didn't know that heaven had my name and account number. When Mama Toby came to stay with us for a few weeks, I didn't protest. After all, she was family. But those few weeks stretched into months, and her presence turned the house into a battlefield. From the moment she arrived, she took over everything: the kitchen, the living room, even our bedroom decisions. She'd say things like, "Amara, a real wife wakes up before her husband, even if she has to cook by 4 a.m. You're too focused on work. No wonder your womb is quiet." It didn't matter how polite I tried to be, she always found a reason to scold me. "Toby?" He stayed silent. Always silent. He'd just nod and say, "Mama, she will learn." I began to feel invisible in my own home. One evening, I came home after a long virtual meeting. Mama was sitting in the living room fanning herself with a look that meant trouble. "Amara," she said, "sit down. We need to talk." I sat, pretending to be calm. She handed me a piece of paper, a list, of all the things she said I had failed at as a wife: cooking, cleaning, pleasing her son, respecting elders. Then she dropped the final blow. "Pack your things and leave this house before the end of the week. My son deserves peace." I blinked, thinking it was a joke. Toby was standing behind her, his eyes down. He didn't say a word. Not even one. "Toby," I said quietly, "you're not serious." "Are you?" He rubbed his forehead and muttered, "Mama says you've disrespected her too many times." I can't fight my own blood. It felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. The air in the room was heavy. My ears rang. I laughed bitterly. "Your own blood? Toby, I've been the one keeping this roof over your head. You think Mama paid the rent, or you?" They stared at me, confused. I stormed into our bedroom, grabbed the rent receipts, and slammed them on the table. "Here, see for yourself. Every payment came from my account. You didn't lose this house because of me. You have it because of me." Mama Toby's face turned pale. Toby just stood there, mouth open. "You're lying," Mama said weakly. "My son is not that useless." "Ask him then," I shouted. "When was the last time he paid a single naira?" The silence was deafening. Mama Toby stood up slowly, her voice trembling with fury. "You're trying to embarrass us, Amara. Even if you paid, you should never throw it in our faces." And that was when I realized no amount of truth could win with people like them. They didn't want honesty. They wanted control. The next morning, while I was in the shower, I heard loud bangs on my door. Mama Toby's voice echoed down the hallway. "Amara, come out. You have 1 hour to pack." I rushed out, towel wrapped around me, heart pounding. By the time I got to the living room, my suitcase was already there, packed. She had gone through my things. My clothes, my files, my laptop. Toby stood beside her, looking at the floor like a guilty child. "You're really letting her do this?" I asked. He whispered, "Amara, please. Don't make this harder. You can stay at your friend's place until things calm down." My throat tightened. I felt humiliation, rage, betrayal, all mixing into something I couldn't name. I grabbed my phone, my purse, and the keys. I looked at both of them, the man I loved and the woman who ruined it all. and said, "You're throwing me out of the house I paid for. But don't worry, karma doesn't miss its way." And I walked out. So if you're still listening to Amara's story, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will make you question what love, loyalty, and revenge truly mean. The day I left that house, the sky was gray, heavy clouds hanging low like even the heavens pitied me. My suitcase felt lighter than my heart. I didn't cry at first. Not until I sat inside the Uber, staring at the house that still had my curtains on its windows, my scent on its sheets, and my money in its walls. That was the day I promised myself, if life wants to test me, I'll pass with fire. I stayed with my colleague, Zinli, in her small apartment in Yaba. She was kind, the kind of friend who didn't ask questions when your mascara stains your pillow. For days I couldn't eat, couldn't speak. I just stared at my phone waiting for Toby to call. He didn't. Not once. On the 5th day, I finally opened my laptop. Emails, deadlines, missed meetings. Life had continued without me, cold and indifferent. I dragged myself back into work, but every sentence I typed felt like forcing life into a body that didn't want to breathe. Then one evening, Zinlei said something that snapped me awake. "Amara, stop waiting for closure from people who don't feel guilty. They're sleeping fine while you're drowning." It hit deep. That night, I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red, but my reflection didn't look weak anymore. It looked angry, determined. I built that house once. I can build again, bigger. A month passed. Then, too, I focused on work and began to rise again. My boss noticed my dedication and promoted me to regional project manager. The raise was significant, enough to start looking for my own place again. But karma was already stretching its legs. Because news travels fast in Lagos, faster than light, faster than shame. One afternoon, I got a call from a mutual friend, Ngozi. Her voice was filled with that mix of pity and gossip people use when they pretend to care. "Amara, my dear, I don't even know how to say this, but I just saw Toby's mother at the landlord's office shouting. Apparently they're being evicted." "The rent wasn't renewed." I froze. "Evicted, but the rent cycle should have ended this month," Ngozi sighed. "Apparently, Toby told the landlord that you would still be paying, and when he realized the payment never came, he served them notice." I couldn't help but laugh, bitterly. Even after everything, they still expected me to carry their burden. A house I was kicked out of. It felt like life was balancing the scales. A week later, I got a message from an unknown number. It was Toby. "Amara, please pick my call. We need to talk." For a full day, I ignored him. Then curiosity got the better of me. I picked up on the second ring. "Amara, please. Things are bad. The landlord locked us out. Mama's sick. I'm trying to get a job, but..." "Toby," I cut in coldly. "You mean the same house your mother kicked me out of?" He stuttered. "Please don't talk like that. You know, I didn't mean..." "You didn't mean what? Standing there while she threw my clothes out? Keeping quiet when I told you I was the one paying rent?" He went silent. "You know what hurts the most?" I said. "Not that you chose your mother, but that you watched her destroy me and still thought I'd save you." He tried again. "Amara, please. Mama hasn't eaten in 2 days. Just a loan. I'll pay you back." I laughed, an empty laugh that carried months of pain. "Toby, you can start by paying back the rent from the last 2 years. Or maybe pray that your God who always provides remembers your address this time." And I ended the call. Zintley hugged me that night and said, "You did the right thing." That's what self-respect looks like. And for the first time, I actually believed her. I poured myself into work, into growth, into rebuilding. Within 3 months, I moved into my own apartment, small but cozy, with a view of the city that glowed at night like new hope. I bought new furniture, new curtains, even a small plant by the window. Every piece I placed felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. One Sunday morning, I sat with my tea scrolling through my phone when I stumbled upon a Facebook post from someone I hadn't seen in years. Toby's cousin. Ifeoma, it read, "Some people lose their blessings because they let pride blind them. You can't mistreat a good woman and expect peace. Karma is real." The comments were full of gossip. Apparently, Toby had been caught cheating with his ex. The same ex his mother used to praise as a proper wife material. The irony was poetic. Mama Toby reportedly fainted when she found out. The girl had left him after using his name to secure loans she never repaid. Now, both Toby and his mother were buried in debt and disgrace. A few months later, I was home working late when someone knocked on my door. It was Toby. He looked thinner, weaker, like life had chewed him up and spat him out. He stood in the hallway, clutching a small bag. "Amara, please, I just need to talk." I didn't move. Didn't even open the door wide. "Talk? About what, Toby?" "You already made your choices." His eyes glistened. "I lost everything. The house, the job. Mama's in the hospital. I've been sleeping in a friend's car. I need your help." I could feel that old ache in my chest, the part that still remembered our laughter, our dreams, our love. But then I remembered the pain, the humiliation, and my face hardened. "Toby, you kicked me out when I was the one paying the bills. You let your mother turn me into a villain in my own home." He dropped to his knees. "Amara, I'm sorry. I didn't know who I was until I lost you." Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "You didn't lose me, Toby. You threw me away." I stepped back and closed the door. He stayed there, knocking, begging, crying. I turned up the volume of my music until I couldn't hear him anymore. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Ngozi again. "Amara, did you hear?" Toby's mother passed, my breath caught. "What?" "Stroke." She collapsed after an argument with one of the neighbors. They said she'd been begging people for help. I sat there in silence. No tears. No joy, just silence. Part of me wanted to feel pity. But another part, the wounded part, whispered that life had simply given back what was sent out. Later that night, I looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "Rest, Mama. Maybe in another life. We could have been family." 6 months passed. My life flourished. I started mentoring young women in tech. One day, I received an award for women in leadership. As I stood on that stage, lights on my face, applause ringing in my ears, I realized everything I lost had been a setup for everything I was meant to gain. That night, after the event, I checked my phone and saw a message request. It was from Toby again. "Congratulations. I saw the news. You deserve it. I'm proud of you." For the first time, I didn't feel anger. Just closure. I replied, "Thank you. I hope you find peace too." And that was it. No grudges. No revenge. Just peace. If you've been following Amara's journey, don't forget to hit subscribe. Because what happens next will leave you speechless, when the final secret about the rent and Toby's betrayal finally comes to light. 3 months after Toby's last message, I finally decided to clean out my old email archives, the ones I hadn't opened since moving out of his house. Most were junk, receipts, or old project files. But one email caught my eye. It was from my lawyer. Subject: Property transfer confirmation. Urgent signature required. Dated a year and a half ago. My heart skipped. I opened it. There it was. My name, my digital signature, and the property address. The same address of the apartment where Toby's mother had kicked me out. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I remembered. That year, I'd been handling multiple investments through my company's legal department. I'd used my own company to secure a long-term property investment, listing it under my business for tax protection. I had completely forgotten that the house Toby and I moved into was part of that portfolio. It hit me all at once. The apartment wasn't just something I was paying rent for. I owned it. Every month I had wired that $4,800 to my own account. They kicked me out of my house. I sat there in silence for a long time. My mind replayed every insult, every cruel word Mama Toby had spat at me. "You're only here because my son took pity on you. If you can't respect this home, get out of it." Her home. Her son's home. But it was mine all along. It wasn't just ironic. It was poetic. And I knew exactly what I had to do next. 2 days later, I called my lawyer, Mr. Okonkwo. "Sir, I need you to verify something for me. The property at 11B, Echo Crescent. Whose name is on the ownership deed?" He chuckled softly. "Madam, that property is under Amara Holdings Limited. You are the sole signatory and beneficiary." I smiled. "Good. Send me the updated ownership file. I have plans." The next week, I went to the apartment building. It looked faded now. The once polished gate rusted, the flowers wilted. A few neighbors recognized me and whispered to each other. The landlord was gone. A new caretaker had taken over. When I showed the ownership documents, his eyes widened. "Madam, you're the owner? Ha! I thought the man before Mr. Toby was the tenant. I nodded. He was. But the lease is now terminated. He blinked in confusion. Terminated? Why? I smiled, calmly, softly, dangerously. Because I said so. That evening, I asked the caretaker to deliver an official notice to Toby, who was still squatting in one of the unoccupied rooms with his sick mother before she passed. The letter was short, formal, and signed under my company seal. Dear Mr. Toby Adesanya, this letter serves as notice that you are hereby requested to vacate the premises within 7 days. Ownership rights have reverted fully to Amara Holdings Limited. Failure to comply will lead to immediate legal action. When Toby saw the letter, he called me, furious, broken, humiliated. Amara, you can't do this. You know this house is mine? I interrupted softly. Yes, Toby. It always was. Silence. Then disbelief. You're lying. Check the deed. You lived off me, Toby. Even your mother's precious house, the one she threw me out of, was standing because I paid for it. He started to cry. Amara, please, don't do this. I've lost everything already. No, Toby. You threw everything away. I just stopped carrying it for you. He tried again, his voice trembling. I loved you. If you did, you would have stood for me. You let pride and your mother's words poison you. Now look what's left. He went quiet. Then, in a small voice, where do I go? I closed my eyes and whispered, back to where you should have learned gratitude. And I hung up. The following week, I visited the building again. The caretaker told me Toby had left, quietly, with 2 small bags and a shadow on his face. Apparently, he had been working odd jobs, sleeping in a mechanic's garage. People said he avoided anyone who knew our story. He was a ghost in the same city where he once strutted like a king. Meanwhile, I was thriving, my business expanding across Lagos, Abuja, and even Nairobi. I bought a new property in Lekki and donated part of my first house's earnings to a women's foundation, helping wives rebuild after toxic marriages. And yet, a strange peace sat in my heart, because revenge didn't feel like hatred anymore. It felt like balance. One evening, months later, I attended a corporate event at the Oriental Hotel. I was wearing a long emerald gown, the kind that made silence follow you when you entered a room. As I stepped toward the bar, I saw him. Toby. He was thinner, older, dressed in a waiter's uniform. He froze when he saw me, tray trembling in his hand. Our eyes met, and the room went silent for me. He looked away first, embarrassed, ashamed. I could tell he wanted to disappear. I walked up to him slowly and said softly, Toby. He swallowed hard. Amara, you look beautiful. Thank you, I said. You look humbled. He gave a weak smile. Life taught me what pride refused to. I nodded. That's good. I hope you keep learning. He hesitated, then whispered, Do you still hate me? I shook my head. No, I outgrew it. And then, with the grace he once said I lacked, I turned and walked away. Years later, I was invited to give a talk at a women's empowerment summit in Ghana. The theme was Turning Betrayal into Power. Standing on that stage, I looked into hundreds of eyes, some tearful, some burning with anger and hope. I told them my story, not as a victim, but as proof that no betrayal can destroy a woman who knows her worth. They thought kicking me out broke me, I said, but they only pushed me into becoming everything I was meant to be. The crowd erupted into applause. I smiled, remembering that broken girl in the Uber staring at the house she built, and the woman I had become since. One night, long after the summit, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't pick up, but something made me press accept. It was Toby. His voice was softer, older. Amara, he said quietly. I wanted to say thank you. For what? For letting me face myself. I hated you for leaving, but I know now that you saved me by doing it. I smiled. Good. Then maybe one day you'll forgive yourself too. I already have, he whispered. Good night, Amara. Good night, Toby. When the call ended, I looked out at the city lights below and whispered a prayer, not of vengeance, but of release. Because the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's peace, and mine was finally complete. If you found Amara's story inspiring, a tale of betrayal, karma, and power reborn, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more African stories that touch the heart, awaken the mind, and remind you that karma never sleeps.